Or try to, because then I'm just gonna give it a couple of minutes for me to finish sending emails out. But if you're catching this live, hashtag live, just let me know you're here. If you are catching this live, always that you're missing the grant aspect of it, but you need to figure out something else that you can do that will help generate revenue because grants is not the only thing that's out there. So yeah, definitely something to consider. All right, so email is out now. Yep, email is out. And hashtag live if you're catching the live. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is recording on all my devices. I did not forget this time. So if you're relying on grants, we definitely need to talk because then it is a topic that a lot of smaller nonprofits, I know like the larger nonprofits and mid-sized nonprofits definitely have an understanding of how grants are not the big picture, but I need everybody to be on the same page because then even larger organizations that were receiving grants in 2024, 2025 came and policy changes happened and they're losing a lot, right? So for those who are new here, I'm Stacey Volcy. I'm a nonprofit growth strategist and your go-to when it comes to building systems that actually support the mission you're working so hard for in your nonprofit. So I'm here live today because there's something that we need to talk about that I will not stop talking about. It's saying and I'm saying this as someone who has worked with several organizations and seen the same pattern over and over again. If your nonprofit revenue plan relies mostly or entirely on grants, you're not in a strong position. It weakens your position as a nonprofit organization and it makes it very difficult for you to actually grow because now most of your impact and most of the work that you're doing is dependent on these monies, this grant that you're receiving from the foundation, the local government, state, or what federal government or whatever. So it makes your nonprofit, it puts it in a vulnerable position. And one thing I'm going to say with love, and like I said, love, but urgency. Okay. I know it's easy to fall into this trap, and that's something that needs to be corrected ASAP. Like, you cannot be treating grants like the end all be all for your like it cannot be that for your organization because it is going to put you in a situation where at any minute where it's pulled, we're seeing this happening in real time, where funding is being pulled from several organizations and even state agencies, and it's causing a lot of layoffs. Like you do not want grants to be the end all be all for you. Okay. Now, organizations like think about it. You put everything into the next application, the next opportunity, the next big yes, but it's not guaranteed. And that's the other thing that people are not considering. Like you're investing all these resources, all this energy into applying for grants, but not acknowledging that it's not guaranteed. Because then there are some there are some groups on Facebook for nonprofit grants, right? And most of the times I see people posting about, is there any grant writer that can guarantee results? Like, I'm sorry to say it, but the grant writer is not the grant reviewer. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that a grant writer, no matter how good you are, can guarantee results. Unless that grant writer has been in the industry for like decades and knows these different foundations that they're applying for, right? It's not guaranteed because there's a lot of relationship building that needs to happen, a lot of networking that needs to happen on the back end that a lot of organizations are not taking the time to do. The building relationships and like this recognition that needs to occur is not happening because reviewers, when they're reviewing your application, they can only review most of them. They can only review the information you provide. So if you're providing an application that's very weak, right, that does not contain information that shows that your organization is actually making an impact, why would they even move your application to the finalist stage? Okay, so it's not the grant writer who holds the cards here. It's the grant reviewers and you, because if your nonprofit does not have the data necessary to make your organization stand out, then you are basically wasting your time and energy and money paying for grant writers. So the reality that I'm bringing to your attention is that grants should be a tool for your nonprofit organization to bring in more revenue, not a strategy. Because if you're making it a strategy, then you're going to be very disappointed. Your nonprofit's going to have a lot of disappointment to deal with, and that's not where you want to be. Now, if you've built your budget around one major grant or even several, you're like I've said this, you're building on shaky ground. Like it's like building a house on sand and there's no real foundation, and think about what happens, right? It's like it's not stable because most grants tend to be restricted. Like for those who don't know what a restricted grant is, you can't use them where you really need them because some of them have limitations around how you can use the funds that are provided in the grants. Like some of them, you cannot use it for operations, you cannot use it for staff or paying staff, right? And some of them are one time only, not recurring or not predictable. That is not where you want to be. And some of them are very slow, like not some, most of them are very slow and filled with red tape. So what that does, it delays your ability to respond to real-time needs. Because let's say your budget was surrounded around a grant that you just applied for, right? So for example, let's say I'm going to call it a random grant, the ABC grant. You apply for the ABC grant and you have the budget, and the budget includes salaries, right? Program activities like printing information for outreach and doing all this stuff. But the stipulation is they don't give advances. You have to submit a financial report on month 3 to get reimbursed. So that means you won't see in that any of that money until you spend money. So you need money to spend money. So how are you going to do that if most of your funding in your budget is grant related? Because most of them are restricted. You need some type of unrestricted funds for your organization so you can be able to do what ABC Grant is asking you to do. Okay, so when you're relying on a hope, that puts your staff, your programming, and your peace of mind at risk. And that's the part that I want you to remove yourself from and remove your nonprofit organization from, is to stop functioning in a level of hope. I hope this happens. I hope we can do this. No, you need to have a concrete plan on how to make these things happen and how you want to make these things occur for your organization, or you're going to be stuck in the same cycle over and over again where things are not happening for you. Now, one example, like that I worked with a nonprofit that actually landed 3 big grants in the last 2 years. More than 3, but 3 big ones. So the 300, 163, and there's another, how much was that one? The 900,000, I have to check on that one. So these 3 big grants, that nonprofit, they're doing amazing work and partnering and building relationships on a regular, right? But they didn't have a single donor, recurring donor, that is. Like the people that have donated to that organization, it's one-offs, like based on relationship. There's no real follow through or whatever. So one question that I brought up to the executive director: what happens if one of those grants doesn't come back the following year? And they were cognizant that they would have to cut staff hours and some programs could not continue and they would have to figure it out, right? So the mission, it's not like they're short on mission, but their systems were lacking, right? What I see there is that they need to clean up their calendars in terms of grant applications instead of applying for grants like here and there. Like they need to clean up their calendar, their grant calendar, their fundraising calendar, have a clear donor journey of what happens when donors come through the door and make any sort of donation, and they need to put a donor stewardship strategy in place. Okay, this is really important. You need to ensure that donors are engaged with and communicated with on a regular basis. So in 6 months, that like if you're able to do these things, you're able to raise a significant amount of funds for your nonprofit. I'm working with another nonprofit, and last week I had a conversation with their executive director. Like as a nonprofit coach, I gave him a goal. Like in 4 weeks, I need $25,000 raised because then yes, I'm a consultant, but I'm also a nonprofit coach. So $25,000 within 4 weeks. And if you break it down into 10, because all of us have relationships, whether we like it or not, all of us have relationships that we can tap into. Because then my simple question for this nonprofit executive director, I asked them, do you have 10 people on top of your mind that you know that could donate more than $1,000 to your organization? His answer was yes. His answer was yes. So I'm like, okay, listen, list all of them because at least one of them could donate more than 5,000. So make a list, 10 people, like create a sponsorship package. Create a sponsorship package and start reaching out and making connections and like, or not making connections, because if you're going to ask for that much money, you need to have a relationship with the people. So start reaching out, start setting up meetings, and start making the ask. I give him 4 weeks. So what day is it? It's April. Our conversation was April 4th. So May 5th, I want to hear back what's going on because then by Friday he needs to give me that list. If he did that list, the sponsorship packages. So that's the part that I do work on as well because as a consultant, yes, but also as a nonprofit coach, I challenge you to do more in your nonprofit as a leader and coach you so you can actually move forward and do the work that you need to do. So the power of having real systems is really important because it can drive your team to do more with less. Okay. And that's what most nonprofits are actually missing is not knowing how to do more with less. So like always, let's talk a little bit about data, right? Let's talk a little bit about data. Now, according to Giving USA, which is one piece of information that I pulled before this live, individual donors account for 64% of all charitable giving. That was in 2022. And that's more than $319 billion. Now, I could assume that amount went up, but I can't wait to see what the numbers look like right now. So you have to compare that to foundations at 21% and government grants are even lower. So foundation grants to 21%, right? Government grants even lower. So do you see where I'm saying you need to focus your energy building relationships, community outreach, community engagement, and really building relationships with different stakeholders because that's where giving is a big thing in communities or for nonprofits, right? So if you're not prioritizing individual giving, you're missing the most flexible, consistent, and scalable source of funding that's out there. Okay. So the other thing that most organizations do not understand is like even organizations that have donors are still having a hard time because now there's an issue of donor retention. The average donor retention rate is only 42.6%. Now, how do you circumvent that? We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But first time donor retention is just 18.6%. So the first time people make a donation, like chances of you retaining that person is only 18.6%, right? And that means that for every 10 people that give, only two of them come back. So that's why it's very important for organizations to have a donor journey and some type of donor stewardship strategy in place to ensure that the donors are coming back, the donors are being retained, and they have a reason to give. They feel engaged enough that they want to give, right? So yeah, you need to be more focused on asking, right? Well, not asking, engaging and not on asking, because too many organizations think that ask is the only thing, but you need to engage them and really reach out to them and get them to understand your values and also for you to understand their values to make sure there's like some type of connection there, okay? So like don't just launch campaigns and hope for miracles because if you don't follow up, they're not going to report back, right? You need to start treating your donors like partners. I've said this before. The more you treat them like partners, the more important they're going to feel about what your mission is and what you're doing, and for them to actually like want to give. So it's really important that you do that work. Now, what you need in a system, I know I talk a lot about systems. So a real donor strategy is going to include a few things. Knowing who gave, when, and why. I really want you to track this because this is going to be very important for the way that you look at the information. You need to know who gave, when, and why, because you need to understand your donors like mindset when they're giving, right? You need to follow up consistently with them, even when you're not asking for money. Hey Jane, I just wanted to call and say hi and thank you so much for your donation last year, because then we were able to use it. This is what we've been doing. Like, touch up with them, give them a call, shoot them an email, whatever it is. You need to follow up consistently with these people, right? And share the impact of their gift. Remember, I told you like, oh, we were able to do XYZ. Yeah, share the impact. They should know what their gift was able to do, what you were able to accomplish, what the nonprofit was able to accomplish with their gift. And treat your donors like part of the mission, not just the transaction. And that's why, like everything I said before, that's why I want you to pay attention to that, because they do not want to feel like a transaction. They want to feel like they are part of the mission. Okay, so when your organization has that kind of structure in place, your budget stops feeling like a guessing game. Like, oh, I don't know how much I'm supposed to spend on this or how much we're going to have, right? So you're going to have a better idea of how much money you're going to be generating and how much you're going to be able to put into something, right? You move from surviving to scaling. You move from surviving to actually growing, and that's where you want to be. So if your revenue right now is about 70 to 80% grant dependent, you're not in growth mode right now. You're in risk mode, because if this funder had their funding pulled, or they tell you automatically, oh, we can no longer fund your organization, right? And then that puts you at a big level of risk. So as much as grants are amazing, it's boku money for a lot of people, a lot of organizations, they cannot be your only plan. Now, I know yesterday one of the lovely individuals that follows me on Facebook, she said, I gotta stop standing on people's necks. I gotta give you some time to breathe. But guess what? Life is lifing and it's not giving us any time to breathe. I'm gonna need y'all to move, because grants cannot be your plan. You need to determine what your plan is going to be, because I'm here for it. I'm gonna stand on these necks until you get to work. Because if you do not, the work is gonna be done to you and you're going to suffer from it. Your organization is going to suffer from it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm going to need people to start having plans in place to support the work they're doing, because like nonprofits are amazing. There are a lot of nonprofits that are amazing, doing great work, right? But they can't do the work if they have no systems, they have no plan in place. So I'm going to need you to think about how you're going to move forward and actually do the work. So if any of this hits home, you need to be in my upcoming workshop. I'm going to host a Fix Your Fundraising Flow workshop on April 22nd to April 24th. And the link's going to be in the comments. I'm going to put it in the comments this time. And what it is, I walk you through building a simple, sustainable revenue system that works without burnout and without relying only on grants. So we're going to map out a fundraising calendar, right? And your donor journey and the systems that help you lead with clarity instead of trying to like meal piece it together and try to figure things out. So if that's something you're ready to do, definitely check the link in the comments. I'm gonna actually, let me do it right now before I forget. So I want you to register for that, because in the 3-day workshop, not only are we building your fundraising calendar, we're going to work on identifying the gaps that you have in your organization. Because why that's important is because you need to know what you can actually do. Because then if you are creating a fundraising calendar and you have to put galas together, right? You have to put events together and you only have one person on your team, who's going to do it? Okay. So we have to look at the capacity gaps that exist within your organization, and we're going to do that during that workshop. We're going to talk about a plan of how to use what you have to actually fundraise a significant amount of money, like to kind of get you to the next level. Because the goal is for you to grow, and you have to, it's like levels to this game. You have to go from level 1 to level 2. But if you don't know how to get to level 2, if you don't have the cheat code, well, the cheat code or maybe enough lives, you can't get there. Okay, so you have to figure out what you need to do to get to the next level so you can continue like growing your capacity of raising funds and do more work. Because then, as the leader of the organization, you have to realize that you're not only like your job is not to work in a nonprofit, but on it. So, if you don't have revenue to support staff or people you can delegate to do the work, you need to start working on the nonprofit so you can generate revenue, so you can get people to work in the nonprofit. Because if you're working in it, nobody's working on it, it won't be able to grow. I hope that makes sense. But let me type in the link for the workshop here before I forget. There we go. I put it in the comments. So, yes, if you are not working on your nonprofit, you are not able to do work that helps grow the nonprofit so you can actually move forward. So I am definitely always recommending stop focusing only working in your nonprofit and find a way to do work that actually helps you bring people you can delegate to, because that's really important, or keep people that can do the work. And that's the other important piece that I want you to remember. But with that said, hashtag replay. If you're catching the replay, I am hungry right now. I'm gonna make my lunch now. I gotta go. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you have an amazing Tuesday. Thank you so much for catching this, and look forward to seeing you.